What is up everyone, welcome back to another Minion Masters video. So in this video I'm just gonna go over the best common and rare cards in the game and give you some tips on how to use them and how to fight against them. While most of these cards are like all of these cards are actually fairly easy to obtain, but a lot of the new players simply have no idea how to use them or even more so how to counter them. That's why I'm making this video, to make sure that you know how to do it and you can win more games. And if you find any value in this video, make sure to click that like button and subscribe if you haven't yet. So let's go on to the list. So let's start off with the best range and flying common minions. So first off we have Netherbet. So when it comes to Netherbet, he's mostly gonna be a bridge grab for you, but he can also deal a decent amount of damage to squishy enemy minions, which are most often range minions. And if you wanna get rid of him, just shoot him with an arrow or something and he's pretty much gonna die, they're very squishy. When it comes to Lone Scouts, they're also a bridge grab and they're very neat in a Crystal Elf deck, because they cost 1 mana if you play them while they are alone. And they can also deal some nice damage in Mana Surge. Mana Surge is when you have 6 or more mana, they gain more attack speed, like many other Crystal Elf minions, in case you don't know. And they're fairly squishy, so hit them with anything and they're pretty much gonna die. When it comes to Propellers cards, these can actually deal quite a lot of damage, because if all 3 of these are alive, that's 30 DPS. And the melee minions can't really target them, and they are melee flying minions. So to get rid of them, you can use a defensive chopper or simply hit them with a projectile. When it comes to this guy, he's pretty much just a bridge grab, but the DPS is actually quite nice on this one. So if you manage to get some kind of frontline for it, then it's gonna be pretty good for you. And if you wanna get rid of it like any other like range minion, just tap it and it's gonna die. It's not very tanky. When it comes to these guys, they have really a lot of range, are really squishy. The DPS is decent, and in Mana Surge DPS is really good. So if you can get a frontline for these, then you're gonna have like 50 DPS altogether, and that's really a lot for like 3 mana. The range is quite big, so if you wanna get rid of them, try using some spells or some backline targeting to get rid of them, because they can get stuck pretty far behind a behind a frontline. When it comes to this dragon, it's a melee flying minion, so it has a lot of DPS and can't be targeted by ground minions. So again, try using defensive chopper or just some kind of range to kill it. And if you can get yours to be stuck on a melee minion that can target it, he's pretty much gonna kill it, because it deals a lot of damage, and if you can't reach it, then you can't do anything to it. When it comes to Plasma Marines, the DPS is not so great, but there's 2 of them, so it's actually decent if both of them are alive and in the same lane. But I most often use them just for bridge grab, plus if I manage to add a frontline for them, then it's also great. The range is okay, and if you wanna kill them, then you can use a Daggerfall or just tap them with anything, they're not very tanky. When it comes to snipers, they can be really annoying, because they get stuck like on a long range somewhere when you can target them, so you're definitely gonna need some backline targeting to get rid of them, because the range is insane. They have probably the biggest range in the game. The DPS is decent, but the damage is big, so like some minions are definitely gonna get one shot by them. When it comes to Cannon Roller, it's really good against melee minions, because it's gonna like just drive away a big backwards when it shoots. And the DPS is very good, actually. Damage is also very good. The range is not as good as it can be, but it rolls back, so it's pretty good. Some backline targeting should also be useful for it, and it has 135 health, so if you have an assassin or something that can deal more with 1 hit, then it's gonna be fairly nice against it. When it comes to drone buzzers, they're really annoying. They have decent DPS, and their flying range minions are they have 8 range, and you're definitely gonna need a Daggerfall or some kind of backline targeting to get rid of them if they have a good frontline in front of them. Next up we have common melee minions, and these guys seem like any other horde of minions. You're just simply gonna need AoE to get rid of them. If they are on your side, then using them against big melee minions is a good idea, because if they're not AoE, they often can't kill them so easily, and these, when they pile up, it's a lot of DPS, like this is 70 DPS if all of them are alive. When it comes to Warrior, she has really a lot of health for her mana cost. So she's pretty much a punching bag, nothing more, nothing less. And this is a very cheap front line, so definitely good to use on your part. And if you are fighting against her, that you're just gonna need to punch that punching bag until it dies. When it comes to this guy, he's very good against like loads of minions. So the more minions there are fighting against him, the stronger he is, because the more attack speed he's gonna have. So he can actually deal fairly nicely with hordes of minions. Or when it comes to frontline plus backline, he can actually deal a lot of damage to the front line simply because the backline buffs him. When we look at this guy, he's actually a Crystal Elf, and the main thing about it is just to use it in Crystal Elf decks, but he's got an insane amount of health, so he can be really useful in many other situations. The DPS is pretty terrible for 5 cost minion, but 80 damage, it's kinda okay. This is also pretty much another punching bag, nothing more, nothing less. When it comes to defense to chopper, this guy is excellent against all melee minions, cause he's gonna deal damage to them and stun them. This also applies to flying melee minions, which is definitely a good way to get rid of them even if you don't have range. And if you are fighting against him, try not to use melee minions as they're gonna get hurt, and try using some range minions instead. When it comes to Divine Warrior, she won't die for a while, which is amazing. So for 5 seconds, no matter what damage you throw against her, she's not gonna get damaged. So they can be used in a lot of ways. It's one of the best front lines in the game for 5 mana, and definitely try using her if you can. When it comes to this Divine Shield, like you can still bolt her during that time or use something similar, so try using that against her if you are playing against her. When it comes to these guys, they're amazing simply because of the Voidborn wound. So if one of your Voidborn minions touches the enemy tower or EA damages it while you have these in your hands, when you summon them, they're gonna enrage all of your minions. This also works in team battles, so definitely very useful. When it comes to Cleaver, he deals insane damage. The DPS is also decent, so definitely a good way to kill like ranged enemy minions that can deal a lot of health, because he can actually run to them quite fast. This is 10 speed right here. And also if you can get it to get stuck on the enemy tower, it's gonna deal amazing damage right there also. When it comes to countering this guy, he has no AoE, so if you summon a bunch of small minions, he's gonna have to like hit every one of them, and 5 seconds to kill one minion is definitely a lot if you have like 7 scars hitting you. When it comes to this thing, the werewolf among these is very good, so I'm surprised this is even a common card. It's a really good card. It summons a lot of minions, and one of them is also werewolf. One thing that you can use against this is a fireball, because it's gonna kill them without summoning the werewolf, and you use 6 mana. I use 4 mana to kill 6 mana worth of minions, which is amazing. When it comes to Brothers of Light, they're really good aggressive minions. I say aggressive because they are melee, look kinda tanky, but they are not actually that tanky. 600 health is not that much when it comes to like 10 cost minion. And also they have AoE in them. The DPS is pretty nice, so they are very strong when it comes to like hitting things, hitting the enemy tower, hitting the enemy minions. But if you can hit them with some ranged minions or flying minions, they can fall down pretty easily. When it comes to common spells, first off we have Shock Rock. So stunning the enemy, either masters or minions, can definitely be the difference between winning and losing the game if you time it correctly. So try using this card and practicing with it if you haven't yet. When it comes to Daggerfall, this is probably the best way to kill a bunch of enemy minions, especially if they're snipers, because enemy can like summon a sniper pack for 5 mana and you can kill it for 3 instantly, which is amazing. When it comes to healing Fireball, you can use this to pretty much like give a lot of health to your tanks and actually a whole group of your minions, and it can also mean pretty much the difference between like just winning and losing the game. Also, if you manage to combo this with Milovin's passive minions, it's gonna be really nice because it heals them and buffs them at the same time, which is amazing. When it comes to Poison Strike, this is pretty much like Daggerfall but with poison. So try it. It can be really good at times. When it comes to Chain Lightning, this is probably the best AoE spell in the game because it can theoretically kill and hit an infinite amount of enemies and hits each one for 100 damage. And using this against Blood Imps is very nice because like that way the enemy has to take 100 damage for every imp hit, which is amazing a lot of the times. When it comes to Fireball, it's like the classic spell. It definitely deals a lot of damage, so it can kill off a lot of enemy minions. And like having a Fireball like hit a bunch of enemy minions, like you can have like even 10 or even 15 mana worth of damage with one 4 mana Fireball, which is amazing. So if you are playing against someone that has Fireball, try not to cluster your enemies so hard. When it comes to Raging Reinforcements, this is just gonna summon random minions and they have Rage. It's a fairly useful card, and like these are completely different minions, so it can definitely supplement for some holes in your deck. When it comes to Magma Storm, this is definitely a lot of damage in an area and it can clear off a lot of enemy minions, so it's definitely good like last resort thingy and can definitely be useful. It's not that good against towers though. When it comes to Dragon Ball, pretty much every spell that has a condition in it, make sure to read the description of it and just use it if the condition is fulfilled. Don't use it otherwise because it's just a usual fireball, and the usual fireball, I mean, it can be worth 6 or even more mana, but oftentimes it's simply not. When it comes to Beam of Doom, this is really a lot of damage, so it's gonna do half the damage against the towers, but definitely can kill off a lot of the enemy minions, and also 300 damage to a tower is also a lot. 7 mana though, so if your enemy like places a building or some snipers or something next to his tower, that's definitely a good opportunity to beam both the building minions and the tower, which is amazing. When it comes to common buildings and special minions, we have a heal buff here, so he's just gonna ignore the enemy minions and go straight for the bridge and heal you or the enemy, and he really dies fairly easy. I mean, just touch him and he's gonna be dead, but if you don't touch him he's gonna heal the enemy a lot, so just make sure to hit him with something. When it comes to wall, it's just a distraction for whatever enemy minions are coming after you. It has a decent amount of health, or actually pretty much a lot of health for 2 mana, but he doesn't deal any damage. When it comes to this guy and this guy, they're both gonna ignore the enemy minions and just go straight for the buildings. This is a flying melee minion and this is a ground ranged minion, so they can deal actually a lot of damage to the enemy buildings, but without a front line they're not usually gonna be that much useful, so just try to give them a front line. When it comes to Ghost Turret, it has a lot of DPS for 3 cost. I mean, it's a building, so it definitely should have. It's definitely one of the good defensive options when it comes to buildings. When it comes to Laser Turret, this is one of the best tank busters in the game, and it's also a building. It has a lot of range, so like placing it in the middle, it can usually hit both lanes, which is amazing, and it's definitely one of the best way to kill the enemy colossus or similar minions. Living Statue is also one of the examples where Laser Turret is very good against, because he has insane amount of health. He won't deal any damage to your minions though. He's only gonna hit the buildings, so make sure to have a backline behind him, and that way he can just keep the backline alive. You can pile them up, just be aware of the enemy fireballs, and that way you can win the game. When it comes to SCART launcher, this is just gonna fire a bunch of SCARTs at the enemy tower, and you can place it like in the middle and it's gonna keep hitting the enemy tower or other buildings on the way. Just make sure to have like some kind of minions walking up so this doesn't get like killed off immediately, because it won't damage the minions around it, and it can deal actually quite a lot of damage to the enemy tower. When it comes to rock rivals, I've placed this here because I see a lot of new players in draft play this and end up killing themselves with it. And the reason why is because this basically summons like a blue golem that has a taunt on it, but it's gonna summon a living statue with frenzy for your opponent for the first time. And just make sure to have like either some kind of backline for it, some kind of support, anything that's gonna kill off the living statue, or to have additional mana to summon it. Because if you don't, the enemy can just summon a backline for the living statue and win the game with it. I've done it a lot of times in draft. So this card is very good if you use it correctly, and if you use it in a wrong way, it can just straight up kill you. So be careful with it. When it comes to rare ranged and flying minions, the Arcanist is very good AoE for what it's worth, and if you can have a good like front line in front of her and keep her in mana surge, she's gonna have a really good DPS, plus it's also AoE. The range is also nice, but she doesn't have a lot of health, so just use some backline targeting to get rid of her. When it comes to bounty snipers, they're pretty much like any other sniper, but gain XP when they hit the enemy master or kill some enemy minions. So if you can just use them very successfully defensively or get them to get stuck on the enemy tower, then it's going to be amazing for you. When it comes to this guy, he has really low range, but while in mana surge, the DPS is pretty much insane. So just try to kill him with some other range that pretty much outrages him. The head is also kind of decent, so you're gonna need a bunch of damage to kill him. So just try to eliminate him before he gets to the mana surge and before he actually reaches you, because he can be a big trouble otherwise. When it comes to Fire Imp, he's one of the best like AoEs in the game altogether, and he can even deal damage after he dies. Also, the fire stays on the ground and it can kill the oncoming minions also. Definitely one of the best rare minions out there. When it comes to these guys, the shield kinda makes them annoying to deal with. The DPS can be pretty decent if they're all alive, and backline targeting spells usually is not gonna work, so you're probably gonna need minions to get rid of these. When it comes to this guy, he's pretty much a drone walker that has marksmanship and shield, and you get both of these things for just 1 mana difference, so I think this guy is way better than the usual drone walker. The DPS is also quite nice, so try using him if you haven't done that yet. When it comes to Annihilator, he's a lot of AoE and definitely like decent damage altogether. He has decent range also, but he's very squishy, so some kind of backline targeting is gonna like kill him very easily. For example, you can use this guy to get rid of him, because he has triple damage when he gets out of invisibility, so even if he had like a lot of frontline and even some backline behind the Annihilator, this thing can like, you can put it on top of the Annihilator and he's gonna hit him once and kill him, and that way like he can die, you don't care, he got his job done. So it's a very good like assassin minion. And also make sure to like just listen to the sounds while you're playing the game, because if you hear this, that means one of these is summoned somewhere, and that's gonna be an issue for you if you don't hear it. When it comes to this thing, it doesn't really target flying minions, keep that in mind. And when it comes to ground minions, it can like kill packs of minions very easily. It's very good against it, and it can also kill off the enemy minions while it's killing off the enemy tower, so it's very good at killing things that don't really fly. And it's kinda annoying to deal with from the ground, so just try to have some flying minions kill it instead of ground minions if you can afford that. When it comes to these, they're pretty much amazing in Crystal Elf decks, but I'd say only in Crystal Elf decks, because this shield is something they rely on, and Mana Surge is also something they rely on. So if you're using them in a non-Crystal Elf deck, just make sure that they are in Mana Surge. When it comes to rare melees, Spirit Vessel is a very nice thing to just give spirits to your other minions while being a decent bridge grab. These guys are melee minions that can shoot some spears into air and kill some flying minions while they're at it, which is also pretty nice, quite flexible thing. When it comes to this guy, similar to the like Assassin Dragon, he just assassinates whatever he gets his hands on, and 210 damage with one hit is definitely insane. The DPS after that is also pretty good, so this is one of the best like simple damaging minions at his cost. When it comes to stun lancers, they're pretty much a counter to any tank, simply because they're gonna stun him, and they're either gonna kill him very slowly, or you can have something else kill him in the meantime. They're not very tanky though, that's pretty nice, so you can kill them with some range or something that's not stunned by them, or simply just throw a fireball at them. When it comes to this guy, that's probably the only minion that can take an infinite amount of damage, theoretically. Because he can heal up everything, every damage he takes, he can heal back up if there are no enemy minions around. So it's definitely a very good frontline and very good for absorbing things like Stormbringers, Aura attacks or something similar. This thing is gonna get reborn after it dies, so just make sure to pay attention on the thing that he leaves on the ground, the lights that the depending on the like shape of them, you know that how quickly he's gonna be there. Basically, the more it glows, the sooner he's gonna get reborn, so just keep that in mind. When it comes to this guy, he's probably the best melee AoE for his price. In simply amazing AoE, he has a decent amount of health and the damage is not even bad. When it comes to this thing, it's very good at simply killing things, and it can also leap from minion to minion, and that way he can get closer to the enemy tower and kill the enemy tower quicker. So definitely a very good aggressive minions. You can definitely kill them off with groups of minions, but using something like Scar Tank is very nice, because Scar Tank is not gonna get damage unless there's a melee minion in front of him. While this thing is a melee minion, it's not gonna be in front of him the moment it leaps, so this is not gonna take damage from him. Additionally, this thing, it also won't take any damage from enemy range minions unless it's fighting a melee minion, so it's definitely an amazing counter to all of these. That also applies to the spells. When it comes to this thing, it's pretty much a prowler, but use this only if you have like Slitherbound in your deck. Because if you have Slitherbounds in your deck, then you're gonna have them like running around, so like sacrificing at least one of them is not gonna be a problem. And Rage definitely helps a lot to this, because the damage is definitely good and the DPS is also very nice. But if you're not running a Slitherbound deck, just don't bother with this card. When it comes to the rare spells, I put this one in here just because I see my opponents killing themselves with it. So it can turn like pretty huge minions that you have, even mythics, into werewolves, and you don't want that. Like, if you summon Morelia's the Queen's Dragon, you really don't want it to become a werewolf when it's at half health. So just be careful how you use this card. When it comes to this, it can be very good at some decks, or it's gonna be complete garbage. So just use it if you can, like, if you actually have minions that are gonna benefit from the rage a lot. When it comes to this thing, it's also gonna give rage to some of your minions, but it needs to survive and get to the enemy tower. And if enemies are from this class, then it's even better. So it's a very nice minion if you can just make sure it survives long enough. When it comes to this, usually you were able to like target what you want to choose, but right now it's pretty much impossible. So just make sure that you have a lot of minions, and or you can just summon one minion next to your tower that doesn't cost a lot, and then play this immediately, because it's like a random minion. And if you have only one, then it's not actually random. This thing is pretty much the stun ball, but much lasts longer and it's much bigger radius, so definitely can be a game changer. When it comes to this, you know that I really don't like gambling cards, but this thing has a taunt, so it can be actually pretty good thing to use, and it can definitely change course of a lot of battles. Because even if a minion is hitting another minion and it gets taunted, he's gonna stop hitting that minion. He's not gonna wait to kill it to start hitting the taunt, and that can be game changing. When it comes to bets, I've definitely had a lot of draft episodes where I've used these to great success, and if you can like combo them with something that costs a lot, like 7 cost mana minion, then it's gonna be amazing. Note that you can actually have almost 11 mana, so just try not to overflow when you're trying to do that, and that way you can like pile up a lot of bets and they can be a problem for the enemy. If you're fighting against this, just use Daggerfall or some kind of ranged minion that has pretty good attack speed, because attack speed is gonna be much better here than the just raw damage. They die pretty easily. When it comes to this, you can just like play your minions as back as possible, as far back as possible, and then just play this, and they're gonna give like random spirits. The spirits can definitely be a huge help in a lot of situations, and some minions that have no business having a lot of health can end up having a lot of health. So this can also be a quite game-changing card. When it comes to this, you pretty much fire a lot of cards on an enemy minion. This is gonna hit flying minions also. Keep that in mind. So it can be a definitely very good like backline targeting solution. And it's even gonna summon some scars to make sure they finish things off if the things didn't blow up at first. This thing is amazing if the enemy has both bridges, because you can summon 7 legionnaires at one place. Be careful not to get like blown up by a fireball or something like that, because it can be a disaster if that happens. When it comes to rare specials and buildings, these 3 are pretty much bridge grabs. This one is gonna jump between bridges, so it can be actually quite nice. And if you have enemy that captures the bridges quite often, then you can summon this even if you have like a front line already, and it's gonna jump and grab the bridges. It's also pretty nice bridge grab. This thing is gonna do some AoE when it dies, and when you're opening with this, just make sure that you have 6 or more mana. Because if you have 5 or 4 mana and open with this, then the enemy knows for sure that it's not an actual cleaver. And the thing is, you always want to try and make the enemy play something that he's thinking he's playing against a cleaver when you're using this. That way it can be much better. When it comes to this guy, he can actually pile up a lot of mana if you manage to keep him alive on a bridge. And if you're playing against it, just hit it with something to make sure it dies. This thing is great with any like range minion or any swarm of minions, because it can give them the shield, and that can be very helpful, especially with range minions. This thing, it's gonna grow like that and pretty much heal everything around it. It can be very good if you have a tank that's getting hit a lot, or something that pretty much anything that can take a lot of damage and not die while this is up. This thing, it can be comboed with things like Living Statue or pretty much any other tank. Living Statue is much better because Living Statue is not gonna attack the enemy minions, so he's gonna actually walk past them and they're gonna remain where they are, and this thing is gonna walk up to them and blow up in between them. It can be very annoying if used like that, so try that combo, it can be actually very good. And it's also pretty hard to get rid of with backline targeting because you have to kill it twice. When it comes to this thing, it's just gonna randomly stun some enemies, whichever one is the closest to it, and that can be very helpful when you're trying to kill things. So just in aggro decks, this can be a very annoying card for the enemy. When it comes to this thing, it's very good in any deck or with any master that relies on late game. So try using it there, and when it comes to Mana Frenzy, it's not very useful there, but it's definitely a good building. This guy is one of the best aggressive cards. He really deals a lot of damage, and if you can keep him alive for a while or even enrage them, then keep them alive, then he's gonna do a lot of damage to the enemy buildings. When it comes to this thing, just give it a front line and it can do wonders for you. And if the enemy plays this too close to the tower, just fireball it or beam it down, because you're gonna damage both the enemy tower and the guild. And the less health the guild has, the less the amount of minions that are gonna come after it. And if you have a Blast Mancer or Spirit Mancer, they're amazing against this. The Blast Mancer is just gonna blast them all, and Spirit Mancer, he's gonna have like 3 spirits walking towards him, because the minions from this, they're not really tanky. So this is definitely a good way to feed your Spirit Mancer with some free kills. So that's gonna be it, guys, when it comes to the basic minions. Pretty much, I know that a lot of this thing is like common sense, and like if you click on these things, then it's clearly written there, but still I see a lot of my enemies making these mistakes and just misusing the minions and letting me win the game. And that's why I wanted to make this video, to make sure you don't become one of those people, to make sure that you play this game way better. And these are all very simple cards to use, so there's no reason why you shouldn't know how to use them. So if this video was helpful to you, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't yet, because I'm gonna be pushing more of these videos whenever I can. And also make sure to check out my other videos and my draft series. You can actually learn a lot from those also. So make sure to enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you pretty soon. Bye bye.